So who are the Fallen Hawks? The little goblin-like enemies that inhabit certain areas of the underground and the Eternal Cities. However, unlike the Nox and various other things that live down here, they don't appear to be native. In fact, they aren't. So the story goes that they were a group of soldiers who were ordered to explore the Eternal Cities in search of something. We don't know exactly what they were looking for, and we know that they started incurring heavy losses, which led to them eventually having to burn the bones of their dead to stay warm, which ironically granted them the cold ghost flame, which they began to use as a weapon, igniting their arrows and spear tips with it, and wielding ornate ghost flame torches as well. But unfortunately for the Fallen Hawks, this would also change them into Elden Ring's very own ghouls. It's tough to say why exactly this happened, but the ghost flame and its keepers, the death bird, and their god, the twin bird, their sphere is death, and Marika kind of plucked the rune of death out of the order of things, possibly defanging the ghost flame in the same way it did to the black flame of the Godskin Apostles. But that doesn't mean it could suppress the weird dark magic of the death birds completely, which could have possibly resulted in the transformation of the Fallen Hawks. I mean, also, who knows, maybe, the average humans aren't supposed to mess with the ghost flame. Maybe it's held by the death birds for a reason and only, maintained by them for a reason. That much really isn't super clear. But we do know that it changed them into this sort of goblin company that patrols the underground. So these unfortunate, corrupted humans sort of resemble walking corpses. Every single one of them appears to have lost an eye and most of their hair. There's 4 different subtypes of these unfortunate bastards, but one thing they all have in common is that they'll lob ghost flame grenades at you. I thought they were rancor pots at first, but they aren't. They just explode with the cold ghost flame, dealing frostbite damage, and are, as far as I can tell, unobtainable in the game. Either that or I missed out on a crafting recipe. But they're noticeably different than the rancor pots, which were like the grenades thrown by the skeletons in Karthus that summon a vengeful ghost that pursues the player, or if you were unfortunate enough to break some of the pots in that same area and have to roll yourself to salvation while avoiding the pressure traps that shoot 3 arrows. What's up with From Software and not changing that? They always just shoot 3 arrows 3 times. It's like super predictable at this point, and yet I still fall for it occasionally in Elden Ring. The Fallen Hawks spend most of their time digging around through ruins and sifting through rubble in search of this mysterious prize they were ordered to find. There's a great shield one that's more than capable of using his shield as a weapon and even ramming you with it. There's the archer ones with their spirit flame arrows, and also swordsmen who wield surprisingly intact steel swords alongside a ghost flame torch. And then of course there's the pikemen who carry rusty partisans and crimson shields emblazoned with the Fallen Hawk's crest. So the Great Shield variant and the Archer variant are available as spirit summons, and let me just endorse the Great Shield fellows as surprisingly capable. They seem to prefer ambush tactics, probably due to their extremely weak and unarmored frames, but the Great Shield wielding ones are capable of forming a fairly functional shield wall. But back to the point of the video, what were they looking for, who sent them, and more importantly, who were they? Who did they serve? Who were these guys? A lot of people see the name Fallen Hawks and are like, oh, Berserk, Band of the Hawk, has to be a reference, and they might be right. But there has to be some lore significance behind this name. They carry these unique inverted hawk crest shields, which is reflected in their name, the Fallen Hawks. This could suggest a connection with the Storm King, the legendary bird that was slain by Godfrey, who all the exile soldiers and banished knights were loyal to. The hawk crests located at Stormvale Castle differ from the ones on the inverted hawk shields carried by the Fallen Hawks. However, I don't think that this severs any connection between the two. I think that when the war was still raging against Godfrey and his forces, that the Storm King sent this unfortunate group of guys into the Eternal Cities, having heard that the Nox created a Finger Slayer blade or something that could kill the 2 fingers, and thus stop Godfrey in his onslaught. Now, I suppose this could have happened during the war, or maybe even after the Storm King was slain. Perhaps they were sent down there to find a tool they could exact their revenge with. But there is another description that refers to them as slaves, so maybe they were enslaved former soldiers of the Storm King, or prisoners of war, who were ordered by America to go into the Eternal Cities and find probably the Fingerslayer blade for the same reasons, except to bring it to her possession so she could presumably destroy it. Who knows if she even could. Again, this whole video is probably going to get into heavy speculation, but that's the nature of these, I suppose, right? Where's the fun in not speculating? As for their crest being pointed down, it could also refer to the fact that they once served the Storm King but no longer do. Or perhaps it was just a crest that was unique to their unit. Maybe they were like a suicide squad of sorts. A lot of people would assume that the birds depicted on their shields are of the death birds and such, but I don't think they've ever actually encountered any death birds. I think that they happen to coincidentally make use of the ghost flame and happen to also have a bird motif, due to them being former soldiers of the Storm King, presumably. And I suppose they could know who the Deathbirds are, since they lived before the Erdtree took over, and sort of did away with the death rites of old, like the stuff that the Deathbirds were all about, like burning the dead in the ghost flame and raking out the ashes, where the worthy would find their way using the lampposts of Helfin to an afterlife, while all the others would end up becoming Rancor, bitter, vengeful skull ghosts. Sort of like the red ones you find in the catacombs in Dark Souls 1. Red skull go boom and all that. So you could make an argument that it's the Deathbird on their shield, but I think that they had those emblems on their shield long before they burned their dead in the ghost flame. And they call themselves the Fallen Hawks, so it probably just the sigil they adopted for their company. The fact that these guys are only found in Nokron is further evidence to support that this mysterious item of theirs happens to be the Fingerslayer blade. Although how they would have found out its location or evidence of its possible location is sort of beyond me, but I imagine they've been searching quite a long time, so maybe it's just trial and error. But I think if these little dudes were to organize themselves and assault the Nox stronghold that was protecting this mysterious Fingerslayer blade, I think that they would definitely be able to overthrow them, but they probably don't know it's down there or how to get down there, so they haven't yet. Their appearance, though, is quite fucked up. It looks like their skin's rotting off and they've got like bits of skull visible with like one eye bulging out over the other. Their heads look misshapen. These guys look like a mess. I would assume before they started burning their dead in the ghost flame that they looked a bit like normal humans. They presumably wore like foot soldier version of the exile armor. Them being in such an altered state of being is sort of parallel to the Warhawks, who stuck around Stormvale and served the new lord, only to get their talons sliced off and replaced with swords, all because some backwoods yokel had an obsession with grafting. But most of those birds died wishing they could return to the storm that they were born in, even though that age has long since passed. I just wanted to discuss my findings and my theories around this small band of unfortunate souls. But if enough people want to see the story of the Fallen Hawks as like a sort of, well, story video, then, you know, comment away, it'll get it pushed up the list. But right now I've got a bunch of projects that are all about to be finished at around the same time, so maybe expect daily videos for a couple days in a row, because I've been optimizing. But as always, I hope you guys learned something. Please consider liking, subscribing, and even commenting. Dislike it if you dislike it, and let us have an outro to remember. Is it a crime that we can't get their Fallen Hawk's helm? Yeah, I think so, yeah. I'd say so.